Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James, and unfortunately you have no Steve and George. Steve is off on a family outing tonight, so he sends his apologies and give me a note. And but we do have a Steve's Week podcast which he sent over, so we'll be playing that later on. It's Sunday the 17th of March 2019. Happy Patrick's Day. It's for people outside of Ireland. It's Patrick's Day over here when St. Patrick banished the snakes from Ireland apparently, but they got back in and got into government, so that's who we have in there at the moment. Right, okay, our guest on the show tonight is a lady called Dani Arnold McKenny, and she's a researcher. Now, I seen an interview that Dani did with another lady on YouTube, and I thought, this lady really knows what's going on. She's in tune with what's happening. I have to contact her and get her on the show. And we had a 2-hour Skype during the week, and we had a great chat. And I said, right, we'll have to do a show and talk about all this stuff, what's going on. Energy's hitting the planet, weather conditions are off the scale, and so many other things that are going on. So I look forward to getting Dani on in a few minutes. As usual, we have a few bits and pieces to talk about, and as I'm here on my own, I'm kind of pressing all the buttons. So if you're on the chat room, either on PIR or OYM, and you do have a question for Dani, can you put the question in uppercase, please? That would be fantastic, so I can see it a mile away. But let's find out what the communication channels are.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Right, well, as you know, communication channels, email is info@oymradio.com. You have Patreon, we're on Patreon, we're on PayPal, and we're on Twitter, but we don't really use Twitter an awful lot. You get us on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel, we put everything up there as well. And yeah, basically email is the best thing to contact us, to be honest with you. If you have any queries or anything like that, catch us on email, that would be the best thing. Right, okay, so let's start off. We have a few things on the list to chat about. Now, as you know, we're doing some testing with the laptop due to software problems that we've had since Christmas. At the moment, what I've done is the original laptop that we used, we're back using that at the moment, but we've put the old software on it. So we're going to see how we get on tonight and see what happens. So if people in the chat room, if you're regulars, you'll know what normally happens at the end of the interview when we go to a jingle that cuts off part of it. So if that happens again, just let us know in the chat room. We'll see what happens anyway, but we have a backup. So the actual podcast itself will be fine on the backup. So just let us know later on. That would be fantastic. Now, there seems to be a big push on now with 5G and smart meters. For people over here in Ireland, we have a college called Minute College, and I seen a video during the week where they chopped down all the trees on Minute College. Obviously, they're making room for 5G because 5G technology is line of sight. And it's just unbelievable what they're doing. And in the UK, it's the same. They're cutting down tree after tree after tree. It's all happening because they want to roll out of 5G. So it's quite serious. So they're really, really trying to speed up not only the 5G, but also I've seen an article where they want to have the smart meters for our houses installed by the end of 2020. Now, apparently somebody put up a number where you can opt out, but I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll check into that a bit more. We'll try and get more information about the smart meters for you as time goes on. A few years ago, what I did is actually rang up ESB, or my electrical provider, and I recorded the call, and I told them I was recording the call, and I told them I didn't want a smart meter, and their implied right of access on my property was revoked, and they'd be trespassing if they try and come on it, or any third party. So I have that as a recording, and they know I was recording it, so I have that as backup anyway. So yeah, 5G, so it's getting nasty with all the trees they're cutting down because of it. Really, really bad. Okay, and the other thing is, during the week, well, it was on Friday, myself, they're ramping up the attacks on social media. The likes of Facebook, if you voice your opinion, no matter what side you're on, it's just, I had two nutcases. I was in this particular group, and I voiced my opinion, and they said, "Oh, you're a right-wing extremist." And I said, "No, I'm just voicing my opinion." But basically, what they were trying to do, and what they will try and do, and I'm aware of this, is they're trying to bait you, to trying to throw it out there so you get real extremist views and you attack them. And obviously, the Gardaí, Facebook will probably ban you, and then the Gardaí will turn up if it's quite extreme at your door. So just be careful that there's people out there, trolls, shills, and maybe some paid trolls and shills to try and bait you. But basically, I just told them that I loved them. So their plan backfired, basically. So you just have to be you have to be careful with these kind of people. But I didn't rise to the occasion of their baiting, and I left the group because I thought, if that's the kind of people that's in the group, I don't want to be in the group. So I left the group, you know. Anyway, so Alan and Steve's week. Well, you're going to say, well, how are we going to do Alan and Steve's week? Obviously, Steve being here. Well, Steve kindly sent us over a podcast of his week, and I'm going to play it now, and then you'll have my week. So let's kick it off here.
Hi, folks. I do apologise that I can't be there this evening. Unfortunately, there is a family event, and it was kind of asked if I could possibly attend because it's a birthday of one of our family members, and my father wants to bring everyone out for dinner. And as my father is getting on in years, you know, I just figured, well, I really should go to this event because we don't know if there's going to be many more with him in the picture. I do hope there will be for many years to come, but so that's why I'm not here this evening, so I do apologise for that. As Alan has possibly mentioned already, we did do a food run yesterday to Lidl in Trim with a lady, which Alan will probably go into more detail. But we done a little bit donations that have come in over the past couple of months from you, the listeners. As we do say, we do put these to good use. We do help out different charities if and when we can, and we did that yesterday. So. Like I say, Alan will probably go into more detail. So that was very kind of humbling and inspiring at the same time. What else? We've probably all heard about the shooting in the mosques that happened in New Zealand during the week, and there's a lot of information going around the media, mainstream, and I figured, well, I suppose if you want to find out exactly what's happening on the ground in New Zealand, then the one person to ask would be Vinny Eastwood, because Vinny does live in New Zealand, and Vinny's website is thevinnyeastwoodshow.com. So I would urge anyone who's interested in finding out more, keeping abreast of exactly what's going on over there in New Zealand, to log on to Vinny's website and just check that out. Now, yesterday was Saturday the 16th of March 2019. Vinny was doing a broadcast where he was kind of picking holes and analysing basically what he's seen in the news broadcast and on that horrible video footage that was uploaded, or that was streamed live on YouTube. And here's the funny thing. The video was streamed live excuse me, on YouTube, where this guy was allegedly going around shooting people and killing people. And he was able to live stream the whole lot of that. But yeah, Vinny he was analysing what the video footage, what was seen, and also the New Zealand Prime Minister, what she was saying and how she was saying it, and you know, the new gun laws that are going to come into almost immediate effect in New Zealand. I kind of figured, wow, that's like problem, reaction, solution almost. So he was analysing this, and while he was doing so, he got a warning from YouTube. And after a little while, they just they disconnected his stream because he was analysing it from like a layperson's point of view. But yeah, the live video was able to go out, and YouTube didn't seem to have an issue with that from what I've heard anyway. But if you do go onto Vinny's website, he does have his podcast, or the video cast, I suppose, of his show is there. There's also an audio version as well if you'd like to download either. But he does say he has some key points on his blog, and he does say, please note that none of the items will be found in relation to everyday false flag events. Very few, if any, of these items should be found at a real event. Thus, when you start seeing several of these items appear in one event, it's most likely a false flag. So there is a list. I'll just quickly go through the list. He says key video is hidden. Still pictures, which are often grainy and unclear, are released to support the official story. Yeah, I think we've seen that many times. The perpetrators are identified in record time, as they were with this shooting. New laws or military action take place as a result of the event. Yes, we can tick that box. The event receives an abnormal amount of press coverage. Yes, it was all over the media, in New Zealand, across the world, in America, in Ireland, the UK. The country where the event took place has recently irritated Israel in some way. Now, has New Zealand irritated Israel in some way? I don't know, is the honest answer. It goes on to say the event perpetrators are set up to cause conflict between several different religious, ethnic or sexual orientation groups. I don't know if that happened. The friends and family of the victims do interviews that are not believable. One or more bombs do not detonate. An unbelievable hero story is released by the press on day 2, and that has already happened. A manifesto is released by the perpetrator. A drill is taking place at or near the event at the same time. Little or no amateur cell phone video footage of the event is released. An online video is found of the perpetrator acting crazy. The details of the event make it impossible to not be reminded of other recent false flag events. The perpetrators wore body armour. Former military members played key roles in the event in some way. Authorities are on the scene in record time, and numbers that would not normally be possible in a short time period without prior knowledge. And the last one, it says, authorities immediately find evidence that ties the perpetrators to radical beliefs. Now, that's just his list. I'm sure there are other lists as well. But it's just interesting that a lot of the things that can be seen in that, I believe, were kind of noted at the event during the week, and obviously at other events that have happened previously. So, now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people did not die, but I'm saying it looks like, from what I've heard, New Zealand tried to bring in new gun laws several times. I think it was 2005, 2012, 2017. And I think they wanted to kind of do sort of what they're doing in America, is take the guns off the citizens. Now, the citizens have rights to have guns, and they have gun licenses over there as well. But it's my understanding that, from what I heard, they don't want the citizens to be armed, so they obviously don't want a level playing field. And also they want the police over there to be obviously more heavily armed. So it's a case of take it from one, give it to the other. Was it kind of problem, reaction, solution? I don't know. I can't say. It kind of looks that way, but that doesn't mean that people did not die. And if people did die, well, that's a horrible atrocity. But it will be bad if it was a lone gunman or 4 gunmen, women, gun people that did this mass shooting off their own bat and made some bombs as well. That's bad. But if the government were involved, or some kind of department of the government, if they were involved and set this up and also had a drill going on at the same time, so people would think it was only a drill, and then obviously it would kind of switch from one to the other, from a drill to reality really, really quickly. And if the whole kind of thought process behind that was to get the people's reaction, the people are, obviously this happens, that's now the problem. To get the people's reaction, something has to be done about this. Then they have their solution. Well, we need tighter gun controls, and people shouldn't be allowed to have guns or whatever. So basically, if they try to push their agenda through, we want to remove people's guns, people will go, no, you're not taking my guns. So they have to create something that will make people want to voluntarily give up their guns and their rights. So it's kind of the Hegelian dialect, I believe, is what David Icke, I think he refers to it as. Unfortunately, I'm sure people did die, but for YouTube to let this whole thing be streamed live, surely at some point in time somebody would have reported that. Now, I'm not sure exactly how long it went on for, but I did hear people saying it was like 10 minutes or more. I haven't actually seen the video footage. I don't really want to see the video footage, because the fact that it's quite possibly real, there are some things that well, me personally, if I see it, I can't unsee it, and there's not much I can do about it, so therefore it's probably better if I don't. It's food for thought anyway, so I'm not sure what other people's thoughts are on what happened during the week, or on the Vinny Eastwood show, when he breaks it down and gives some information as to what he sees and why he thinks that's a false flag. Be interested to hear, but unfortunately I won't be there this evening. So if anyone does have any comments or questions, just email them in to info@oymradio.com, and I will see them during the week, and that'll be that. Okay, that just remains for me to say, enjoy the rest of the show. It's going to be a cracker. Unfortunately, like I say, I won't be there, but I will listen to the podcast. Back in work on Tuesday, so that's the way it goes. Enjoy the rest of the bank holiday weekend. So for myself, Stephen George, take care. We'll catch you next week.
There you go. So thanks, Steve. That's a pre-recorded podcast from Steve, as he's not here in the studio tonight. But we will be talking about New Zealand and what happened down there with Dani in just a few minutes, just for my week. And again, this is something that we'll speak to Dani as well. We're going to be talking to a lot of stuff. Technology seems to be breaking down, and there has to be a reason why. More and more people are having major IT issues. The technology just doesn't want to work anymore. Answers on the postcard as to why. Is it the energies hitting the planet? Is it the magnetosphere? Or is it the divide between the new Earth and the old Earth, as someone suggested during the week? I don't know. I've been having major IT issues, and people have said the same thing to me, that things are just not working. For some reason, we don't know. So again, we'll touch base, we'll talk about it. And obviously, as you all know, that we're going to be taking, we made an announcement that we're going to take a sabbatical at the end of March. Just energies are low, and we're just going to try different things, myself and Steve. Steve is currently doing his own radio show project with his wife on Thursday night on PIR call to his company. My own radio show will be based on solutions and a different way of thinking. I'll be aiming to move from the 3D to the 5D if that's possible. The website for my new show is circleofwhitelight.com. That's active now at the moment, circleofwhitelight.com. This is the name of my original spiritual development circle when I lived in London, and it's the tip of the cap to the circle. It's now live, so you can check that out. And the last thing on the list before we bring Dani in, we'd like to thank the listeners for your donations. So a big thanks for your donations on a regular basis to OYM, because we can really help other groups with the donations. And thanks to the lads in the band I'm in as well, who donated a few quid for a food shop for the homeless charity Feed Our Homeless. Myself and Steve met Kira from the charity yesterday, and we did a big food shop with Kira. They are doing fantastic work. 3 nights a week Kira is there helping the homeless and feeding the homeless. And every little helps, as the ad goes. So a big thank you to the listeners for your donations. It really does mean a lot, and we can help other groups like that. If we have spare, after all our expenses are paid, if we have a couple of quid, what we try and do is try and pass it on and help other groups. So thanks for that. Now the PMR radios that we got for we had Louise on from the group Child Protection Group, who expose paedophiles, and she was on the show a few weeks ago, well, probably just before Christmas, and we still have the 2 PMR walkie-talkie radios for the actual group. So we're going to try and organise. I'll have to drive down to Louise and give them to her, because obviously they're very busy at the moment. They do a lot of work on Facebook, a lot of exposing paedophiles. So basically with the radios, it'll be a big help there. So we'll try and sort that out. Right, okay, on to our guest, Dani Arnold McKenny. Now, Dani is a researcher, and she's an independent journalist and show host author of Removing the Shackles blog, RTS.earth, and unefforsunite.com. I'm keeping that clean. Unefforsunite. Fill in the blanks. Dani is a homeschooling mum of 4 unique humans, an aromatherapist with her own skincare company, Gaia's Garden, who is a research addict and professional rabbit hole excavator. That's very good. Powered by an endless stream of questions and a need to know what's happening in the world around her. Now, I had a great talk with Dani during the week, and she was very upfront and honest, and she told me a number of the rabbit holes she went down, and some of them will ring a bell with you guys. And look, it's all part of the learning. You know, you go down the rabbit hole and you get caught up in a group thinking that it's a good thing, and you find out it's not a good thing and everything else. And we had a real good frank chat during the week, and tonight we're just going to be talking about everything and anything. Good evening, Dani. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, darling. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Thanks a lot for coming on. As I said, I came across you speaking to another radio show on YouTube, and I thought, this lady really knows what's going on, but she's not expanding on that subject matter on the show. And I said, I'll have to get her on the show and we'll talk about these things. Now, there's a few things there that I mentioned regarding energies and technology not working, and I know one of the things that you said on that show I really want to touch base on is the fact that what's happening with people, with the energies hitting the planet, and what's going on. We're seeing an awful lot of people passing over. You mentioned earlier on, just before we went live, about the animals. A lot of animals are passing over. Do you want to tell us what you have come across in your research?
Oh, absolutely. So, to give a little bit of background, I have been seriously down the rabbit hole studying specifically the sun, the solar events that happen, CMEs and solar flares, etc., for probably close on 10 years. And you know what it's like when you're trying to study anything that's like, astrophysics, you have to wade through the mainstream crap and dig through to find actual information. So I've been on this journey to try and expand my awareness and my comprehension specifically about our sun and the relationship between the sun and our planet and ourselves. So you go through these things and we know, okay, so for example, geomagnetic storms. So geomagnetic storms happen quite frequently, and it's a scientific fact that when we have geomagnetic storms, that they have a direct effect on humans. Not just physically, i.e. headaches, heart attacks, strokes, but also psychologically. So, for example, road rage goes through the roof when there's a geomagnetic storm on. These kind of, and it's very, very well established baseline information. What happened though is that, especially over the last 6 months, I started really seeing some unique things playing out in the magnetosphere of Earth, and the magnetopause, and I started correlating data, and a lot of the data didn't come together properly. Like you sit there and you go, but wait, this isn't quite right anymore. Why have things seemingly shifted, or has my perspective shifted? And I started digging deep. And now when we got into January, I broke a story on January 3rd of this year. We had a geomagnetic event that showed on the magnetosphere, the graphs, the live stream graphs, unlike anything I'd ever seen. And I immediately went live with a report saying, holy crap, this is astounding. It was a blast of energy that came through at midnight between January 2nd and January 3rd. And that blast repeated itself almost, with the exception of 2 dates, which was January 5th and January 19th, I believe. From the January 3rd until January 24th, every single night between midnight and 3 a.m., the same blast came through. And you start going deep, and you start realizing, okay, well, wind speeds don't measure up to what we're seeing in the magnetosphere, so it's not a, it's not a solar, a coronal hole and the wind streams coming in. It's not quite right. Then I started looking at our geomagnetics as far as the actual storms themselves, and I started tracking in January. We had a huge amount of 0 kp days. Now, if anyone has looked at the geomagnetic storms, and you'll see them, everyone uses them, and there's usually the little green line graph. They'll have little green lines, and when it gets to a storm, it goes red and it goes higher. That's a measure, and it's measured in kp. So, for example, a kp9 is a really extremely strong geomagnetic storm. We usually hover kp3, kp4, kp2, around there. When you have 0 kp, that is when it's so low. It's the lowest measurable amount of geomagnetic intensity around our planet. And I started seeing, again, we had, in my own groups, I had so many members who had heart attacks, or family members who had strokes, pets passing away suddenly. And I started trying to dig, and it took me a long time, and I finally had to discover you have to have the trick word, because Google algorithms, the search algorithms are just broken.
Yeah.
And the word is heliobiology. So if you really want to study about, or get into researching about the effects of the sun, geomagnetics on human health, you have to put in the search terms heliobiology. And I started pulling up all these studies that talked about the information that we know about huge geomagnetic storms affecting us. Well, 0 is equally effective to humans, and well, to all mammals. And that the incidences of heart attacks, strokes, arrhythmias, heart arrhythmias, psychotic breakdowns, suicides, goes sky high during these 0 kp days, just the same as they do when we have a really heavy storm, which is like, a kp7, a kp8, kp9. And this was stunning to me, because now it opens up a whole new piece of research of saying, okay, we're talking about the direct magnetic effects of the planet on the human, not just biology, but psychology as well. And in January, we had from January 3rd into February 3rd, we had 16 days that had 0 kp. In February, it was equal. So now I started putting up warnings on my Facebook. I would let people know, like, if we just touched down to 0 kp, I wouldn't really keep as much notice of it. But when we had one section of days at the end of February where we stayed in 0 kp for 6 days.
Well, I noticed earlier, Dani, that you put up a weather warning on your FB page. Why did you do that? Is it because what you're seeing?
A little bit of everything. I have a bit of frustration with, and we'll get into this, you and I know we will, because you and I were talking about distraction.
Yes.
And people are so distracted with everything else going on. A lot of people are not realizing how bad the weather disasters are at the moment. Let alone geologically, let alone, like I said, let alone the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the huge cracks forming in the ground, let alone that. Just the weather has been insane for the last 3 months. And so my whole thing is, I'm an old school prepper. I've been a prepper for pretty much most of my life. And I'm saying to people, let alone worrying about pole shift or all the rest of it, people need to be prepared. So do you know what to do in the event of a flood? And look at what happened in Nebraska. Look at what happened in California. Do people know how to handle themselves? Do they have a plan? So that's been my kind of thing in the last few days. It's just been like, when we're watching this incredible insanity, in just the weather alone, people need to be prepared. They need to have a plan. At the very least, they need to have a plan. Because it might be one state over, or one province over, or one country over from you now. But next week, It could be you.
Yeah. And of course, as you say, the divide and conquer programs which the governments roll out and what's going on out there. Now, we know about 5G, I just mentioned it earlier in the show. And again, that's a program like everything else. It's all about distraction. And this is what they do, because what else is, if they can keep people distracted, whatever the program is, what are they hiding? It's the sleight of hand with the magician. You know, you're watching one hand, you have to be watching the other hand, and this is what they're doing. So there's something else going on. And we've heard this about the weather. Now, in 2004, Dani, I was given an article regarding a thing called the Photon belt. And
Yep.
the whole idea of the Photon belt was that we are going into this area of space, our planetary system and the sun. We're going into this area of space, which is going to be a change of energy. Now, we hear people talking about the big solar flash, which is supposed to happen in March 21st, but I don't think, again, dates and things happening, and, you know, I just don't believe that. But yeah, I think you had some comments on that as well, didn't you?
Well, this is it. When I got into the whole solar information, you know, like I said, you fall down certain little rabbit holes, and you talk about the photon belt. And of course, 2012, you know, we all remember the lead up to December 21st, 2012, and there was so much hype, etc. And I went looking for stuff. And for example, there's, and of course, I'm racking my brain right now trying to remember the gentleman's name, and I can't. It was a scientific article that came out of Russia by a scientist. And he talked about, and this was 1998 that he wrote his studies, talking about the photon belt, talking about, and some of the basic pieces that he wrote about was the fact of, we don't know. He, as an astrophysicist, as a scientist, we don't know what will we don't know the cause and effect. We don't know what will happen. We don't know how these energies are going to play out on the planet, on the physicality of the planet, on the energy of the planet, and on, of course, us as human beings. We can't know this. So now we're flowing through, pardon the pun, we're flowing through all this information. And the one thing that in all the geomagnetic reports that I've done through January and February, I've said over and over again, we need a new measuring stick. Because right now, the only measuring sticks we have are the stuff that we're given grudgingly from NASA, from NOAA. It's all we have. And I've come to the conclusion is basically there's been too many anomalies just in the geomagnetics alone that I have seen that there has to be something else happening. Another energy, there has to be a third variable in the equation for us to get what we're seeing play out in the geomagnetics for them to happen. And it could very well be that we don't have the measuring stick. If we don't have a satellite out there or a satellite on the ground, etc., and it's not geared to measure, for example, one specific frequency. Look at the vastness of frequencies. You know, they monitor for ultraviolet, so UVA, UV, UVC, gamma rays, X-rays. But there's a vast amount in between there and above and beyond. So what is it that's coming in? And we may not have the measuring stick to know. And is this photon belt? That's my personal, I happen to agree, that's my personal opinion, that we are going through this area of space. But when you realize that we know pretty much everything you've ever been taught about, and I'll use air quotes, outer space, you might as well throw it out the window.
Yeah, yeah.
A good portion of the theory is all crap. We have to re-educate ourselves. And that takes some serious research to break out of that, because it's a piece of programming. That mainstream science that we got taught in high school and university, right up to PhD levels, it's a large piece of programming when all of a sudden you realize the universe is not what they told you it was. The sun is not a big fusion reactor. Outer space is not a vacuum. These are the kinds of things that all of a sudden you go, wait, now we have to rethink everything.
Well, I think we can take that as a given, that the educational system is designed to dumb us down, and most of the stuff that we're told is rubbish. History and everything else, really, it's rubbish. So we have to keep an open mind. And I tell you, something I do want to bring up as part of what we're talking about. We're going to be going all over the place. We have a couple of questions coming in already, which is great from our listeners. But one of the things, again, about thinking different, I'm involved in a men's shed, where it's good for the men get together and we stand shoulder to shoulder and talk about issues and all that kind of stuff. And we were sitting down having a cup of tea during the week, and it's not so much about the subject matter, but we were talking about. They were saying, "What's the solution? How can we solve this problem?" And I gave them, our listeners know about the problem that we have, obviously financially, and one of the solutions that we had was, imagine if 100,000 people in the country gave €1 a month. So €1, just €1 a month, or $1 or whatever a month, that was donated to a group that was, everything was fully transparent. How many people could we help with that money? And instead of the guys putting the energy in and saying, well, yeah, okay, now I know you get one or two people going, well, how would that work? Because sometimes the solutions are so easy. I mean, that's such a very easy solution, and it's human beings that complicate things. But the problem was that they were looking for the reasons why not to do it, rather than the reasons to do it. And this drives me nuts, and this is why I want to set up Circle of Light Radio. And it's all about focusing on solutions and thinking different, to try and get people to stop focusing on the negative and start looking at the positive and going, instead of saying, we can't do that, or sure, we can't do anything, or sure, what can you do? Because everything's about energy. Even thinking of a solution takes energy, and people just don't want to do it. They just keep going for the easy solution, which is the negative, oh, you can't do anything. And it does drive me nuts. And there's loads of people do it. It just seems to be an automatic programmed response when, got to do with the thinking. Now, I don't know whether that's got to do with what's going on, because we talk about lunatics and Luna being, the moon and how it can affect people, full moon and all that kind of stuff. So maybe there's something in that as well. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I'll throw something out at you, and I've been toying with this for a couple of years now, is when we see things, and for example, we can look at a graph. So whether it's the geomagnetics, whether it's the Schumann resonance, and we see a massive spike, an anomaly, something happens. And sometimes we see a correlation, especially when you talk about the geomagnetics, you see a correlation in, of course, how people are acting. Right? And I started asking the question, kind of chicken and the egg, is it a geomagnetic spike happens, therefore causing all this psychotic breakdown? Or is that a reflection of what we as the inhabitants of this planet are actually going through? But especially this last 3 months, we have reached epic levels of insanity across the board. It doesn't matter what you look at, whether it's politics, finance, education, health, infrastructure. It literally doesn't matter. Everything has gone completely insane.
Yeah.
We're watching the people around us, the people on the streets, the people in the shops. We're watching people literally losing the plot. And then we're seeing things like, for example, what we saw yesterday and today on the Schumann resonance. We spiked and hit 150 in the amplitudes on the Schumann resonance last night, just after midnight UTC.
Actually, that's one of the questions, Dani. So, as you mentioned the Schumann resonance, I'll throw the question. It says here from EEE alone on PIR, the chat room, the question is, how do we measure the Schumann resonance?
Oh, I would love to have a straight answer for you on that. But as I've never been able to get a straight answer on that, I honestly don't know. I wish I had an answer, because I've had multiple theories thrown at me. I've had people say, well, it's measured this way, or it's measured that way. It's measured in the ionosphere. It's measured in Earth's frequencies. I honestly don't know. And that's the problem when we look at a lot of these graphs. Sometimes we don't have the ability to comprehend, because it's kept all secret and stuff, how they're achieving these measurements. And all we can do is watch them. And then for me, like this morning, I got up this morning, I look at the Russian site, which shows us the Schumann resonance, and go, holy crap, the amplitudes hit 150 last night. Immediately pull up all the graphs, look at the geomagnetics, look at the magnetopause, look at the wind speeds. Is there a correlation? Usually there isn't, but there was a slight correlation last night. So what was it? That midnight to 3 a.m., there was definitely something. It looks like it correlates between the spike and something that we saw happen with the wind speeds and various blasts coming in. But again, do we have the right measuring stick?
Tell me something. Frequency is very important, and I want to throw this in because we're talking about this subject, and we hear an awful lot about the 5D Earth and the 3D Earth, and it's a frequency change. I know there's some woo-woo out there talks about, we're going to be picked up by aliens and all that kind of stuff. I just think basically it's a conscious, we raise our frequency of our consciousness, and there's going to be a change and shift, and a lot of people are reporting a lot of changes and things that's happening to them and things they're experiencing. As I say, it's an overlay of a frequency, and this seems to be it's being reported more and more, which I think is quite interesting, and talking to people and seeing people talking about their experiences. So the fact that it's all got to do with frequency. The other thing as well is that we have Thomas on every now and again from Truth on our Integrity show, and Thomas is right when he says, we've talked to Thomas about this, and he said the same thing about people losing the plot. And the one thing that you have to be able to do is stay grounded, stay between the 45 and the 55. Because if you go to the extremes on either side, that's what's happening. People are losing the plot. We have to be observers and watch what's going on, and stay in between the 45 and 55 and stay grounded, stay kind of on the level. But how do you feel about the whole 3D, 5D frequency changes and what people are experiencing with that?
You know what? I have been backwards, forwards, upside down, inside out on this topic for years. And honestly, sometimes it depends on the day you ask me. Right? Like, little pieces of information come in, even your own intuition come in, and that changes your, let's say, conclusions, if you will. It is about frequency. Just because everything is frequency. So we can't just throw that away. We can't take a theory like, for example, of this splitting of frequencies, and just take that theory and say, well, that doesn't resonate with my belief structure, so I'll just throw that away. Because there's something to it.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at things, for example, so I'm going to throw it out there, the big ME Mandela effects. There's been a massive uptick in the last couple of weeks. And I don't mean, when I talk about Mandela, I call them, well, I can't even say that. I have my own name for Mandela effects. They're called the WTF effects. Because that's what you usually do. Your eyebrows go up into your hairline, and you sit there and go, holy crap. The personal ones. I don't care about changing logos. I don't care about lines in movies changing. That to me is the distraction. What we're seeing right now is people are, and it's been really increasing over the last year, really increasing, and in the last few months, off the charts. These Mandela effects, as much as I hate that term, happening within our own lives, within your own field, the people you deal with, the things in your house, the city you live in, all the time now. I had one happen to me, let me think, what show was I ranting about it on? Was it 2 weeks ago? And I literally went into my website. My Gaia's Garden website, and I was updating an article, and I happened to go into the back of the office because I needed to just change like something with where I've got my products listed. And I went in and I looked, and I'm like, 3 of the products have old pictures on them. And I said, well, that's ridiculous. I know I changed all those pictures 3 months ago. I know I did. So one of the products, I went in Okay, you just go, software glitch. It's got to be a software glitch. That's what it is. So I go into my computer to go find the image to re-upload it to the website. The image doesn't exist on my computer. Now, I can remember taking the photo of the product. I know that I updated the product 3 months ago. But now the image doesn't even exist on my computer. So I kind of was having a real like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And you just think to yourself, okay, I need more coffee this morning. Obviously, I just need more coffee.
Yeah.
I went on with my day, and I went to one of my other sites, went to update a new article that had gone out, went to go update, and I went to put the header on the article top, and it's not on my site, in my media library. And I'm like, what? I must be having some serious glitches. It must be the servers glitching out again, because we've had server glitches this year. I go into my computer. The image doesn't exist. And I know I created this image. I remember, and it's one of my own creation. I remember making the image. I remember using the image on previous articles, but it doesn't exist. It's gone, as if it just evaporated into some other reality. And I had this, and it just, what's going on? And I talked to one of my best friends, and she's like, I can't believe you just said that, because she had just gone and done something and went to go look for a presentation that she had done on her computer, and the line in the presentation she was looking for is gone.
That's strange.
Yeah, it's just gone.
Because for me, it's more got to do with technology not working. It's just not working. You know, just general stuff. I mean, for the problem that we have here with the laptop and the software, which we're trialing different things as well, but just other technical issues. And then my son called me the other night. He was having a problem with his phone, and he wanted me to have a look at his phone, and his phone just wouldn't work. What he wanted to do, it just wouldn't do it. And I'm going, what is going on with all this technology? It's just failing. It just doesn't seem to be working.
It's across the board failing. Same thing. I have a desktop computer. I actually cracked out. My producer for my shows actually cracked down on me. Would not allow me. Well, my last laptop died. He would not let me buy a new laptop because I killed him in about a year. And he was like, "No, we're going to get you a desktop," and he built it. So it's like the top of the line, every piece in it. I have had so many issues, and my poor producer is pulling his hair out going, there's no way it can be doing these things. But it is. My daughter's laptop died. One of my kids has a tablet. It just died. We had, my husband's phone died. My best friend who lives across the village, her laptop died this week. And the strange thing is, you can say computer chips. You go, okay, if we're talking about magnetics, it would make sense that it could interrupt and cause issues with computers, because we all know what happens if you take a magnet, a big powerful one, and you put it too close to a computer.
Well, if you have an EMP, I mean, if you look at if you go to the severe side of things, the one thing that we all know about, and people have heard about the Carrington effect in 1859, which happened, which was a CME from the sun, and because we didn't have technology, we only had telegraph poles. It blew out a few telegraph poles, and one or two people got electrocuted, but it was no major issue. Now, we had a near miss in 2012 again by about 3 days. And there's a possibility that again, we're overdue for another Carrington effect.
There's another one in 2015 that was a very, very near miss.
Okay.
And that was in, August of 2015. And it was the same thing. It was a massive blast. I can actually remember when it happened. And luckily it was the backside of the sun. It was not directly facing us. Because it was unlike any CME I've ever seen. Now, we were lucky.
And plus, it depends.
Before, it would have been directly Earth facing.
Yeah, mind you, if depending on what way the Earth is facing the sun, it probably only affect half the planet anyway. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know, because this is the thing. Like, if you talk about internet, and we talk about these lines are all underneath the oceans and they go everywhere, but we just don't know what the actual effects would be. And when you study how energy particles, for example, cosmic rays, how they interact into the magnetosphere, when they hit the outer shell, if you will. And you know, we talk about the magnetosphere as like a toroidal field around Earth, with really an opening on the top and the bottom in the North and South Pole. When these particles come blasting in, they don't just bounce around the outside like a force field and disappear. Most of them funnel into the center of the planet. So we really don't know how a massive coronal blast like that. We've seen the small ones. You know, it's like when Quebec, what was that, 2003? Was the big one, and there was a big CME, and it took out power in the province of Quebec in Canada. These things do happen, but these are small. But relatively speaking, these are comparatively small events. Now, I don't know if you saw, just this week a new study came out that from Greenland, analyzing ice core drilling and various other pieces. They've discovered that there was 2 massive solar events that happened, the magnitude of 10 times the Carrington event. One happened in approximately 700 AD, and the other one I think was 980 AD.
Wow.
So this is huge, because now we're looking, okay, like this was much, much bigger. Now, for me, one of the things, I'm a history buff, I love history. And I've been deeply, for the last 5 years, heavily researching history again. And there are those out there who are telling us that a lot of the history we've been told didn't actually exist.
That's right, yeah.
Like, for example, the Dark Ages. Dark Ages didn't exist. And I said to my husband, when we read this study, well, these blasts were in 700 AD to 900 AD, which is, right in the middle of the Dark Ages. What if that's what happened? Like, literally one of these blasts came in, and it kind of, if you will, reset certain things. And it took, a couple of hundred years for, again, society to rebuild itself up. Do we have actual blank spots that whoever they are, the air quotes, just filled in?
Well, I agree. I mean, they do say that, again, going back in history, that the Earth has been reset about 5 times. And, by evidence they have come across. So whatever happens for that reset, I mean, even like if you go back to, I'm not going to, say the Bible's accurate in any way, but there's a reference to the floods and everything else. So if that's part of just some climatic change that caused the flooding, and that's one of the resets, and we've had about 5 of them, well then that would kind of make sense. And now, I know also that recently, and I'm sure you've seen it too, these transformer stations that have been blown out by these plasma effects.
This is huge, and I've been trying, this has been one of my points, like talking about the weather, because I've kind of given up on talking to people about the plasma effects in some ways. Some people just don't want to look at that. Because it's scary. It is. We're going to openly say it. It is scary when you start realizing that we have electrical transformers blowing all over, not all over, just in America, where we saw that huge one that happened in December of 2018 in New York City, because who could miss that? They've been happening all over the world. We've seen lightning strikes. We've had lightning storms, the likes of which have been insane. Insane lightning storms. We have images from Russia that just put out some incredible images that they came up from one of their satellites, showing massive flashes of light in Earth's atmosphere where there's no clouds. It's not lightning storms. It's not thunder and lightning, but they're still seeing these massive flashes of light. That is the plasma, and the whole plasma element. When you start, people have to go in and start researching the electric universe, and you start to realize that this is all interconnected. What we're seeing as the plasma is directly connected to what we're seeing in the magnetosphere and the magnetic shields around the planet. They're all interconnected. You can't have one without the other. So when we see something happen in the magnetosphere, there is going to be a direct electrical mirror image. Now, which one is causing, which one is affecting, we don't know. I don't know. but they're always there. They always run in tandem. And that's one of the big things I say to people. We have to be looking at these electrical anomalies that are happening as well. This is a major indicator that, and I'm going to do, again, air quotes, climate change is not man-made. It has nothing to do with CO2. It has nothing to do with big industry. Yes, big industry and pollution is nasty. We don't like these cars and trucks that pollute the atmosphere and big factories. No, it's not good. But it does not cause climate change. Not even slightly. Especially when you realize that this climate change is happening all over our solar system. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, they're all going through climate change right now. And I'm pretty sure they don't have a CO2 problem.
Well, there's a lot of, there are people who are out there who are climate change experts are insane, and I'll say some of them are good. We've had them on the show, David Dubois being one of them, and there's another chap, I'll have to think of his name, and he was saying that we have about 10 years, and he was invited to a meeting by Steve Wojcicki from Apple. I don't know, I forget his last name.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about,
yeah.
Yep.
So he got invited to a meeting by Steve, and he briefed Steve, and he said, whatever's going to happen on the planet, it's going to affect the northern part of the planet worse than the southern part. So Steve got his family packed up and moved to Tasmania. Because of this, and there's a lot of people moving to New Zealand as well, and they're all of these rich people buying their bunkers and everything else. I'm not even sure that's going to even help if something major hits the planet.
The south of Morocco as well.
The south of Morocco they're moving to?
Yes, I used to live in Morocco. We lived in Morocco for several years, and we tracked, do you know that Hillary Clinton has a large chunk of land in the south of Morocco, right off the Sahara Desert?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah,
there's a whole lot of them apparently are buying up property down there. Now, why would anyone buy up property on the edge of a desert unless they know something that we don't know?
Yeah.
That maybe at some point in time in said future, it's going to be lovely, green, lush, tropical land, which it once was. When you went through the Sahara, I've been through the Sahara down there, and it's all seashells. You walk through the desert, and it's incredible ammonites and seashells, etc., because that whole area at one point was underwater. It was green and lush and beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. And, what we've been told is that, we talk about the reset. In one previous lifespan on Earth, there was wars and a nuclear war, and that's why the desert is there now like that. Maybe the last time, but that's what caused it, was the nuclear wars, nuclear weapons, because people say, oh, we're very advanced these days. We're not. We have this technology that we have is outdated and it's old. We've had more advanced tech years ago.
Well, I mean, there's the nuclear reactor that they discovered in Africa, and of course, which country now has just escaped me. And they estimated that it's like a 150 million year old nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Now, they know this because the elements that they found are things that only ever come out of a nuclear reactor. They're man-made elements that are made in a nuclear reactor.
Yeah.
Well, doesn't that put a new spin on, the Earth is only 6,000 years old?
Oh, definitely. Well, see, again, they write the history books just to kind of put us off track and just convince people that, we've only been on the planet for 6,000 years, and they're finding stuff. One of the big culprits of hiding hidden technology is the Smithsonian. They've hidden and destroyed so much of
so much.
Because it doesn't fit into the dogma that they preach to us. Even the Catholic Church, with the other parts of the Bible, which they won't bring out because obviously it goes against the dogma. And the stuff they're finding apparently in Antarctica, they're not going to come out. They've had some religious leaders going over there, and so many other people going to visiting and going, this is going against that we told people. If we come out and show them this stuff, they'll just know that we were using BS all the time.
Okay, have you heard of the book called Genesis Antarctica?
I haven't. No, not that book. No.
Okay. I'll give you, I have an illegal ebook copy of it. I'll send it to you. This is a book that was published relatively recently. And I'd say, like, I can't remember off the top of my head now, but I'm going to say in the last 10 years or so. And it is written as fiction. It is written and presented as a work of fiction, telling the story about scrolls that were found in Antarctica, in clay urns buried deep in an ice cavern. And as I say, it's presented to the world as a piece of fiction. But I have a friend. And I have a friend who was at the university in Australia when those urns were delivered and has categorically confirmed that the urns and those scrolls absolutely existed. So is this another example of how many times people have to write a work of fiction to put the information out there? Because if they release it as fact, then it would be buried, it would be destroyed, they'd be under attack, etc., etc. So they release instead under the guise of fiction and hope that people get the gist. It's an amazing story. I highly recommend anyone, you can buy it on Amazon. I highly recommend reading the book. It's about 800 pages long. It makes you ask some really, really good questions. Really, really good questions about, well, what are they hiding from us? For me, I live in Malta. I'm down here in Malta, you know, land of temples.
Yeah.
Land of so many temples. So there are so many temples in Malta that are ignored, that the public don't know about.
That's the first thing I said to you when I said you're on the island of Gozo, which is a small island of Malta. I know Malta very well. I've been there loads of times. We've Maltese friends over there. And the first thing I said is about the history of the school children that went missing in the catacombs in the early 1920s, because Malta is so many caves and catacombs there. You can go from one side of the island to the other without actually going above land.
They just discovered another whole section of catacombs just a couple of months ago. Another whole section of catacombs has been uncovered. And you never get to see them.
No.
They're all closed off. You hear about it. It is, honestly, it's one of the biggest disappointments I have here, is that you have this tiny, tiny set of islands has so much history, so much incredible things that should be studied, and yet it is kept hidden.
Yeah.
And blatant lies. So, for example, the Hypogeum. The Hypogeum temple is the one that is built underground. It was carved out of solid rock. The first time I went to go into the Hypogeum would have been 1989, I think. And it's an astounding experience. Well, now they've closed it all off, and they only allow a certain amount of tours to go through, and I think it's only a maximum of 15 people per time. You're not allowed to bring recording devices. You're not allowed to tone if you're in the Hypogeum. If you get caught oming or doing any kind of toning, they won't allow you to go and do meditation. Well, why is that? Well, because same thing. If you go really digging deep, into the underground information, if you will, you find out that when you hit certain tones in the Hypogeum, everything begins to vibrate. And people have had incredible experiences where their bodies have started to vibrate. They've seen lights. They've had almost what you could categorize as out-of-body experiences. The central room cavern, if you will, of the Hypogeum, it's got the most perfect acoustics, like literally the most perfect acoustics in the world. Well, and they try to tell you, of course, they say it's only 4,500 years old, which is a crock of crap. I have a friend of mine who's been studying the temples for many, many years, and he's written a pile of books about it. He's a Maltese man named Francis Delosio, and his books are fantastic. And he says he guarantees it's on the order of 10. That the Hypogeum is at least 45,000 years old, at least. And they tell you, well, it's a burial chamber. Really? So the ancients somehow had the technology to carve a cavern into the bedrock. So not build it, but actually carve it out of the bedrock. A room with absolutely perfect acoustics. And it was done by basically what they call, just savages. Just savages.
Yeah. Well, we know years ago they had the ability to lift the rocks with just using frequencies, harmonics and stuff. So there's no reason why, again, this is all technology and methods that, have been hidden. Because if they have the knowledge and we don't have it, that's it. I do want to go off to the questions because there's a couple of subjects that we have to cover as well. So let me throw you over a few questions from our listeners on the chat room. Peter wants to know, is Dani still having the strange communication via her computer? Have you worked out who it is? And now obviously he's talking about Lilo and...
Yeah, no, that was Lisa Harrison's computer. It never happened on mine. Although at one point very early on in the conversations with this Lilu, whatever Lilu is, I did offer to open my computer up for communications, and it just never seemed to happen. No, shall we say, I distanced myself from all of that in 2016. Apparently there are still messages coming through. Lisa talks about it in her private group, but I wouldn't know. I haven't had any contact with Lilu since, I guess the last time would have been December 2015.
Okay, well that's fair enough. Lisa does talk about Lilu. And I have watched Lisa's videos, and something was supposed to happen last year, I think in July, based on this Lilo person or character or entity, and nothing happened. And again, I think something else was supposed to happen shortly, and on the 21st apparently of March, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we have another question for you. Peter also wants to know, does Dani know anything about the Tunguska event 1906 that happened over Russia? What was the real cause of the blast, UFO, meteor, etc.?
Oh, you know what, I have done some serious research into Tunguska. Is one of those subjects that just enthralled me for many, many months. I have a really way out theory on Tunguska, and I think Nikola Tesla was involved. And I think it may have been an oops. I think that it may have been when Nikola Tesla was doing some of his testing on frequency stuff, that he may have inadvertently caused that to happen. But that's me and my way out there theory. Was it some kind of a cosmic ray blast? I don't think it could have been a meteor because they've never found any pieces of a meteor. So if you can't find evidence at this much time of actual meteors on the ground or in the ground, because they've dug up a vast amount of land around it, there had to have been something, and it obviously was very energetic. So was it some kind of extreme cosmic ray blast? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It is going to be one of those mysteries that I don't know if we'll ever find out the answer on.
Well, I bet somebody knows, and it'll probably come out sometime, somewhere. Somebody's going to say something, or something's going to come out somewhere.
There's some file in some dark office somewhere, kind of like at the end of the, Indiana Jones movie when they take the Ark of the Covenant and they file it away in that giant warehouse. Yes, there's a file somewhere that somebody knows about Tunguska.
Maybe, I'm just wondering, could a remote viewer remote view back in time? That would be interesting.
I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been done.
Yeah, we did have a remote viewer on our show. I must get him back on and see if that's possible. Email him. Right, the next question is from Dougie, and he says, does your guest know anything about light language?
I'm going to say no. I have heard little bits and pieces about it, but I have not researched it.
Okay, well that's okay. Our guest on the show next week a lady called Tracy Mahan is going to be speaking about light language. That's one of the subjects. So, so if you want to tune in and listen to light language next week, that's the show to be tuning into. You learn from there. Right. Okay. Joan MC. Joan wants to know: does your guest believe that the majority of climate change is caused by human events or other forces?
Oh, it's definitely not human events. None of it is human events. Let me rephrase that. China has shockingly bad air quality. That is human-made climate mess. What we see on this planet, i.e. ice caps melting, the jet stream changing direction, these incredible amount of storms, the geomagnetics, everything else, that is not man-made. There are so many flaws in the given supported climate change, human-made climate change theories, is to be laughable. And that's why there are so many scientists who are speaking out against it and saying, no, like, what you're saying doesn't make sense. But in the reason, for me, and I'll give you my own opinion, the reason why they are pushing this is, number one, it's a great way of gathering taxes, isn't it? Oh, we have to carbon tax this and carbon tax that. But if you can sell a story to people, people are not stupid, they can see that the climate is changing. They can see, if they're paying attention, that we have earthquakes and volcanoes going off all over the planet. We have floods, mudslides, tsunamis. It's crazy. People get it. But if you can blame it on something being man-made, then if a man made it, man can fix it.
Yeah.
That is the automatic go-to. It's like, well, if we just put enough money in, if we just put enough effort in, those guys out there, all those smart people out there, they can fix this problem.
But then hang on, are we making an assumption that, you know, if they've opened the floodgates on something, because sometimes what they do is a bit like Jurassic Park, where you're so busy creating what you're doing, you're not thinking why we should be doing it or should we be doing it. Maybe they are playing around with technology they don't really understand, which is apparently what happened in Atlantis, where they were like kids with new toys with this, you know, advanced technology, and maybe that's what they're doing.
And you know what? That is absolutely a piece that we have to keep on the table. We have to look at things like CERN, and we have to look at things like D-Wave and quantum computers. The fact that now they've just released a paper saying they used quantum computers to slow down and reverse time at the quantum level.
That's it, yeah.
Mandela effect much? So, yes, we have to keep those pieces on the table, but we cannot ignore the pieces in science when we are looking at things and people are talking about they're doing these core studies and showing that there are these, for example, magnetic flips that happen every 12,000 years. 12,000 X amount extra years. When we can see these things and we can say, okay, magnetic, just using that as one single example. The magnetics poles shift and radically shift every 12,000 years. And when they do, one of the big studies that came out of the Arctic, and this is covered in the Adam and Eve paper, or let's say it came up when people started examining the Adam and Eve paper by Chan Thomas, that was kept classified for 50 years by the CIA. What was seen when they analyzed these core samples, and it was an American Air Force guy who wrote the report. Not only did they see that the magnetics shifted, but unlike the current magnetic pole shift theory where they say it happens once every 200 million, bajillion, gazillion years, and it's erratic, no, what they're seeing is the fact that if you can imagine the poles, let's say it's poles upright, then it shifts 45 degrees. Then it goes back upright, then it shifts 45 degrees. And it always goes back and forth between the same 2 points. Now, this is when we have to look at it as a cycle. If we're seeing this kind of evidence of this, and the same thing when we look at things like rock formations, when we look at things like where the seas are, and the evidence that the seas were, much higher, much lower, etc., the evidence shows us that while, yes, mankind and scientists in general may have pushed this along, I don't think we can say that they're 100% at fault for causing these things. And this is why I say when people are going on about HAARP, for example, HAARP is causing all these storms, and HAARP is causing all these earthquakes, and HAARP is causing these tsunamis. And now, of course, the big one in the States is everyone's talking about, oh my goodness, what are they called? The DEW weapons, sorry.
Oh, California with the energy weapons, yeah.
Called DEW weapons. Okay, well, wait, hold on a tick. When you look at and analyze, I put a big article out, I think in October of this year. When you look at a map of where all the fires are, and you overlay a map of where all the fault zones are in California, they're almost identical. But when you have fault zones, you have static electricity. You have this massive charge as the faults are moving. They generate massive amounts of electrical energy. What happens when it discharges? You have these lightning strikes. So this is, I think, we're seeing right now all over the world. All these transformers blowing, I believe, opinion, that it's coming from this movement, the amount of discharge energy within the planet. And if certain areas have got certain metals under them, i.e. nickel and iron and all of these very conductive metals, which California does in that area, guess what? What happens when you charge a big metal plate? So there's more to it. And this is, I'm always trying to say to people, if we, and you said it earlier on when you were talking in your opening comments, we need to be observers, because the moment we step into a belief, i.e. we become completely hyper-focused on one thing, for example, HAARP, or these DEW weapons, people tend to close themselves off to the other evidence that's around.
Bang on.
And if a piece of evidence doesn't fit in with that narrative, they throw it away. Well, that's when we get blindsided.
That's it. We've said this. Our OYM listeners know that me and Steve promote what we call the fluid belief system.
Exactly.
Because if you keep your belief system fluid and you say, what I know today, I know tomorrow I might know something different which contradicts what I know today. But if you keep it fluid, you keep learning, you keep educating. The trouble is, too many people are stuck in a belief system and they don't challenge what they believe, or they have too much invested into their belief system. They won't walk away from it, or they won't question it. And this is why sometimes we have a stalemate with people, that we can't even kind of educating people about this. We always say, it doesn't matter whether the moon is made of cheese. Don't argue over the content, because you won't win with these people. Challenge their belief system and get them to understand, do you have an open mind or do you have a closed mind? And if they say, well, I have an open mind, say, well, I'm giving you information that challenges your belief and you're closing down. How can you say you have an open mind if you won't even entertain the possibility that what you believe is wrong? So
I said this, I went through insanity in 2015 when, of course, the flat earth stuff came out. Because I was really interested in early 2015, I was really interested in a lot of the information that was coming out of the flat earth movement, because they forced you to ask really good questions. You had to question things. And when you question things, you open yourself up to new ideas, new ways of looking at the information. And I was very excited when I first started researching all the flat earth stuff, because it was a questioning. It was, ask this question, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And could this have happened? Did this happen? And then what happened to that is it became a belief structure.
Like a religion, more so.
Like a religion. And I said to people, here's the thing. If the earth is flat, if the earth is round, if the earth is a pyramid, if the earth is a rainbow farting unicorn, does it change your life in any way?
Exactly.
You still go to work, you still go to school, you still live in the same house, you still live in the same city, you still do the same things. It does not affect your daily life in any way. But if you take it on as a complete, solid, immovable belief structure, Now, I get it all the time when I'm doing all the geomagnetic reports, for example. And I cannot tell you, I get inundated on YouTube by people who are like, there's no such thing as outer space, there's a firmament, and it does this, and you're just an idiot. And I'm like, okay, you just missed the entire, like, if that's the only thing you took is at one point in time, I made one sentence that said the word outer space, and you've just negated the entire report based on one piece of terminology, and you didn't listen to any other facts, any other pieces that were given to you, that is a closed mind.
Yeah. Exactly, and this is why we say as well, by the way, if for people, the OYM listeners know, we have a YouTube video on our YouTube channel, actually, that we describe what the fluid belief system is, and also we've done a conference.
Yes.
And that's spot on. It's all about challenging your belief. Now, the flat earth thing, and we had to talk about this when we first hooked up, about it doesn't stop, even if the earth is flat, so what? Do things that you can change in your life for the better, the positive side. Flat earth, it doesn't matter whether it's flat or not. You're wasting your time, and apparently the flat earth thing is a CIA program anyway. Again, it's a belief system, and some people got into the religion side. It's like, it's like pushing a religion. It doesn't matter.
And I would say this, the flat earth destroyed several brilliant people that I know. And I'm not going to name names, but some are very, very well-known people who were putting out material that challenged belief structures, that blew people's minds, that they were incredible thinkers. And all of a sudden they got hooked into the flat earth thing now, and that's all they talk about. That's it. They don't talk about all these incredible things that they were studying. They don't talk about all these other subjects anymore. They only talk about flat earth. And is that not the purpose of a belief structure?
Totally.
Stop people. You're no longer researching, you're no longer giving your wisdom. It just pulls into this box, and it becomes a very tightly defined box as well. Like, you can't step outside that box. You can't question any piece of that paradigm.
Yeah. And
just like the Catholic Church.
And that's why I love, as I say, the fluid belief system, because I'm not stuck. I can challenge my belief. What I know now, I can challenge it, and I can change my mind and go, oh, there's new information that goes against what I thought was right. And that's again, sticking between the 45-55. Become an observer. Don't get stuck in the belief system, and just stay grounded. Now, there's two subjects that I do want to talk about before we finish up. We have a good few. We have about 30 minutes left anyway, so give or take. But we want to two things I do want to talk about. The first one is what Steve mentioned in his week, his podcast, about the New Zealand shooting. And on Friday, I'm in a Facebook group, and we got into a debate. They were talking about. They were giving it about Gemma Doherty, and she's a right-wing extremist, and then I'm a supporter of Gemma, this person said, then I'm a supporter of Ben, and I just said, look, there's some things they say I agree with, and some things they say that I don't agree with. Does that make me a supporter? Not really, no. I just, I'm very fluid with what I believe and what I don't believe. But what happened on the social media was they were trying to bait me to get some extremist views, and apparently they said I'm a right-wing extremist. And as I said to Dani before we went live, well, if I'm supposed to be a right-wing extremist and he disagrees with what I'm saying, that must mean he's a left-wing extremist. So, I mean, where did these people come from?
I will steal that on you, I'm telling you.
Go on, tell me. What do you think will happen in New Zealand?
Okay, here's the thing. The one piece that I want to point out, I have a little infographic meme, if you will, that I created years ago. And it stays on my desktop to be republished, it feels like every other month, which is the definition of a false flag. Because in this extremist view, and the alternative media is extremely, guilty of pushing extremist views. That a false flag means that it never happened. Okay? That's not what a false flag is. Now, I'll I'll give you an example. New Zealand. I have a very good friend of mine who has friends in New Zealand. And one of she has a cousin in New Zealand, and one of her cousin's friends was killed in the mosque. And his uncle was one of the people hiding out of the back door in the grass. And she spent yesterday talking to people, and so people died. Because people that we know, people that I know personally, and this means nothing to your audience, of course, because your audience doesn't know me. But I know this person who told me this information, and I know this person well enough to know that she would never, ever give false information, wouldn't lie about something like this. So when she says, I know someone who was killed in the mosque, I believe her. Now, in the big shooting that happened in California, in the nightclub, in Paradise, California, the same thing. I have a really good friend of mine in California who had a cousin who was in the nightclub and talked about the fact that her family who live in that area knew multiple people who were in the nightclub, one of whom was killed. False flag events does not mean that that it didn't happen, that it's all CGI. Now, did it happen the way the news tells us it happened? Oh, most definitely not. But when you, exactly what Steve put out there, the points, Vinny Eastwood, and I'll go to Vinny's site and go check out that podcast. I haven't heard it yet. There are certain boxes that you tick. Is it anyone else find it interesting that Facebook just the day before this happened went down almost globally? And the same day that happened, or the day before, Facebook has been brought up on serious charges of what they're doing with people's personal data. And then it just so happens that this guy live streams on Facebook. I know people, because I worked for many, many years in maternal and infant health. I know people who had their accounts closed down within seconds of putting out a video of them breastfeeding their baby. Yet, someone was able to live stream a mass shooting, and it didn't go down? Yeah, that stretches the realms of plausibility extremely to me. The other thing is what happened immediately after that? They come out, we're banning all automatic weapons.
Yeah.
It's like that tells you everything you need to know, and it's the same thing that happens in the States. When we watched it play out, it was the exact same theme as how they've all rolled out across the United States as well, and Canada. They have one of these events, and immediately the government comes out, and sometimes it's within an hour, 2 hours. Cause, action, the effect. Here we go. There's our problem, and now we're going to give you an answer. We're going to ban automatic weapons, regardless of what your feeling is about guns. Yeah. It doesn't matter what your personal feeling is about guns. When we see that play out that way, you have to know that this was pre-rehearsed. There's something to this that is not just as the narrative we're being given by the mainstream media. And we have to keep our minds open. Just, like you said, be the observer, watch it play out. And this is in a lot of stuff that we're seeing right now. It is so important that we be the observer and call it out as we see it.
And Steve did say on his podcast there that apparently New Zealand have been itching to actually put more controls on guns for years. And they haven't succeeded, and all of a sudden now we have this incident goes off, and the first thing she does comes in, she goes, we're going to be taking care of guns and changing the gun laws, making it harder for people. It's the same narrative, the same 9/11. I watched a video years ago when I first got involved in this. And I seen a lady at a conference, and it was in 1995, and she said, we are going to have a big terrorist attack in America, and they're going to blame it on the Middle East, someone in the Middle East. And this was in 1995. it's the Hegelian dialectic, which is problem, reaction, solution. They do the same thing. It's all pre-planned. And if you look at the psychology and the manipulation, this is why I love psychology, because it's about how to manipulate and control people. And the people at the top, the cabal, the elites, if you want to call them that, they know how to get people on their side. And they have as Thomas would say, we'd call them the portal people. The people on the news reading the fake news out for people to swallow up. And it's just...
And no questions.
And no questions. And here's another one for you, Dani, which we can have a chat about. According to the Daily Mirror newspaper in the UK, and I got this off the Daily Mirror newspaper, we had the Ethiopian Airline crash, the 737, right? According to the mainstream newspaper, they're saying that no bodies in the wreckage of that aircraft have been found. Now, apparently 157 people apparently died on that plane in the crash. But according to the Mirror, they're saying that no bodies have been found in the crash.
Okay, so here's another piece. They give you another piece in that article. And I backtrack because people go, oh, the Mirror is just a rag, Okay, great. I agree, it is kind of a rag.
Yeah.
But you go back, for me, as someone, because I used to do a news show, and I used to do twice a week news shows. So when I had this down for an art form, was something like this happens, I knew all my sources to go to dig in, to pull out all the event information. You go in and you look, and you say, no bodies were found. Well, then you go in and you look and say, okay, well, let's go find that information. Yeah, I can now cross-reference it. Many other news agencies have announced the same piece in Ethiopia, etc. Okay, so we can clarify. No bodies. Now, we have certain things. We saw a picture of them pulling a body bag out right after it happened. But at the same time, you have to look at the pictures and you go, but okay, what's in the bag? Do we know that there's a body in that bag? No. Now, here's the thing. I have been covering for years all the plane crashes. All the plane crashes. We know, and I'm sure your listeners, if they've been following this rhetoric for a while, the Boeing 737, they tried, after the plane crash in Switzerland, the German wings plane crash in Switzerland in 2015. And there was all kinds of stuff. They tried to blame it on the pilot, was suicidal, et cetera, but the people who were smart were like, no, there's actually a problem here. Number one, the system is hackable. The autopilot is hackable. And number two, there's some glitches in the autopilot system. So when they tried to play that this time, in this specific crash in Ethiopia, they tried to say, oh, there was a glitch in the autopilot system, blah, 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 blah. Okay. But if you're Boeing, and every single time there's a plane crash, you get hit with massive lawsuits. You get hit with, let's look at what happened. Boeing has lost a huge chunk of the stock market in the last 2 weeks since this has happened. Okay? You're not going to let a glitch remain. If there's an actual computer glitch in the autopilot, you're not going to leave that go for 4 years now. Almost exactly 4 years since the German wings crash in the Swiss Alps. You're not going to let that go. Here's the other piece. In that Mirror article, at the very, very bottom, there's an eyewitness account of someone who said there was smoke coming out of the back of the plane as it was coming in. So wait, smoke coming out of the back of the plane. 737s have the engines on the wings. If there was a problem with an engine, the smoke would be coming out of a wing, wouldn't it? Why would the smoke be coming out of the back of the plane? He said the plane was swerving erratically, and that after it crashed, it was raining. Clothing and luggage, etc., was falling down. Okay. The hypothesis I made to a friend of mine, the number one place where all these commercial pilots come from is the Air Force. As a matter of fact, I had a good friend of mine who was a captain in the Air Force who used to lament non-stop about the fact they'd get a pilot, they'd get them trained up, they'd get them to a certain level, And at the end of their contract, one of the airlines would come in and offer them ridiculous amounts of money and steal them away. And the Air Force would have to go out and retrain new pilots again. Smoke coming out of the back of a plane. Was it hit? Was it shot with a missile? And if we hypothesize that maybe there's a chance that the pilot who was flying that plane was ex-Air Force pilot, if someone's shooting at you, what are you going to do? You're going to start moving that plane. You're going to try and dip and move that plane to get it out of the way of whatever's shooting at you. And then the eyewitness said there was clothing raining out of the sky after it crashed. Okay, wait. That doesn't logically make sense unless the explosion took place in midair.
In midair. Now, also, I'd like to add that I have some undercover footage that was sent to me regarding the Boeing manufacturing plant in America, and the workers are being interviewed, and they said basically the person was asking them, would you fly in one of these planes? And they all said no, because apparently quality control was sped up, and obviously the quality of the plane now, you could argue the point, and I totally agree, if clothes are raining out of the sky, then that sounds to me like it's been hit by a missile. But then why would the staff, if it is indeed an undercover interview, say that they wouldn't fly in one of these planes because they're concerned about the quality of the plane? So loads of questions there, but I tell you, we have about 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes left, and I do want to focus on solutions. I do want to focus on the positives and what we need to do, what we need to be doing. So everything that we talked about tonight, and it's great because we just went around everything and just talked about everything as we do, bounced around everything.
Rabbit hole skipping.
Sorry?
Rabbit hole skipping.
Rabbit hole skipping. So what are your solutions? What is your recommendation based on the information that you have? What can we give people or suggest to people to do, apart from what we said, obviously, about the 45-55, become an observer, stay balanced, don't get caught into any of the programs or belief systems. What else would you add to that?
Well, on that one point, and I say this on my shows continuously, if you're online on social media and you find yourself getting angry and you start, doing the keyboard warrior pound where you start manically typing out an answer because, and you're angry and you're reacting that way, specifically if you're having a day of that. I mean, every so often we all have a post that comes by and you're like, okay, you're a moron and I'm going to respond. But when you have days like that, and they happen, I tell everyone, get up and walk away from the computer. Get up, take yourself out of that place, and then really ask yourself, go sit quietly and say, why did I get so upset by this? What was so upsetting? Was it a belief structure sticking its head out? That I was trying to defend one of my belief structures? Is that why I got upset? Was it just general piss-offedness? We don't know. But just take those moments. Step away from the computer. Go outside. Go for a walk. Go play with your kids. Go do something else. And take the time to recognize the fact of, wow, I just got triggered hugely, and I need to look at that. So that's always my number one piece, is don't allow yourself, if you do get triggered, because we all do. We all have our moments where we're having a bad day, and you just feel like you need to tell the moron off. But step back. Now, my other prime focus, and has been for years now, is community. Community right now is everything. And that means finding your tribe, even if it's online. Finding your family, your best friends, the people you can talk to who support you, who comprehend the things that you want to talk about and what you're going through. That kind of a support, even if it is just online, and I don't mean to say just, because you know what, I'm sorry, that's me just tripping over my own mouth. Even if it is online, because I have incredible friends who are my family. And some of them I've never met in person. But it doesn't matter. They are my family. Community helps everyone, because we can support each other emotionally, sometimes even physically, and just for the verification, I'm not going insane because other people are going through this too. But also community around us. I encourage everyone, you know what, get out into your community. Find one little thing that you can do. Community gardening.
Yep.
And get to know your neighbor. Get to know the little old lady who lives down the street. Because we really, within the awakened community, if you will, there's a lot of times you find yourself very, very isolated, where you feel like you can't talk to people. And sometimes it comes down to, I can't talk to those people because they're religious, pick a religion, or they're a flat earther, or they are a staunch militant vegan, or they are pick something. Do we have to have everyone in your little circle, do they all have to believe the same thing? Or can we reach out to people and just reach out to people and enjoy that one piece of that we have in common? I say the community garden.
Well, this is it. I would say, and something that we promote at OYM is really to say to, if somebody that you come across you're talking to and is whatever it is they don't like, because some people mightn't like the TV license, or they mightn't like the water charges or whatever, and you can say, well, okay, look, I've got some information on that you might be interested in. Would you be interested? So your common interest could be a topic that they don't like, and you could help wake them up or educate them by the subject matter. And I totally agree with what you're saying there, Dani, that you have to, I just said it to you before we went live, and something that we say in OYM, people have to look at the 6 people around them. And you have to say, do them 6 people add positivity to my life, or are they taking my energy? Are the energy vampires? And if one or 2 people in that 6 people group is taking your energy, you have to remove them or distance yourself and get other people in, because positivity feeds positivity. And that's important for your own sanity to do that.
It is. And right now, when we are in a time when everything is insane, like I said, on every level, whether it's political, it's financial, it's whether it's in your kids' schools, whether it doesn't matter. Everything around us in this reality seems to be crumpling and losing all sense of reality in many ways. These are the times where you need to have community around you. But the same thing, like that, the people who you can reach out to, you can talk to. And even if it is just on one little subject, even if it's just one little thing that you have in common, like you guys over there in Ireland, my hat's off to the Irish people, because I'm Canadian, I'm ashamed to say, and the Canadians are such, I'm sorry to be insulting, such sheep, and they have allowed so much to happen in my home country. And I look at the Irish, and you guys fought off the water tax, and you were like, yeah, I don't think so. Watch all of us get up into the streets and say, no, you're not going to.
But they're still bringing it in, Dani. That's the thing.
You know what? But it's been pushed back, and it's been pushed back because you guys get up and you actually do something.
Yeah.
Like VAT, the new VAT that was they were trying to put a 23% VAT on health supplements. Now, I've got several friends of mine who are in Ireland, and that's their business. And they're like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, this is crazy. Enough people got up and stood up and said, yeah, no. Now, has it been stopped? No, but it's been put off for another 10 months. And that gives time for people to, again, get circled back up, circle the wagons, so to speak, and keep pushing it back. Sometimes this is the actions that we need to take. I am a political activist. I've been a political activist for 20 years, and a political advocate in many realms. Standing up and protesting actually works.
I kind of disagree with that to a certain extent, but I will say this. People have their own skills. some people are good at doing certain things. Some people are good at protesting. Some people, so each to their own. I mean, that, you know. So I think, you know, the people who like doing that and feel good for doing that and want to do that, that's up to them and that's their bag and that's great. I would prefer to put my energy into other things like the radio show and doing other things. And if you have all these people doing all different things, like the ripple in the pond, then hopefully you have the 100 monkey effect, you know, and bang, things start happening, and that's the way that's where I see it. Now, I have one more quick question for you before we wrap things up, and the quick question is from Joan. Very quickly, she says, "Have you ever heard of shungite?"
Oh yes, I'm a huge believer in shungite. I'd actually like to talk about that just really, really quickly. Shungite and C60. I don't know if your audience is aware of what C60 fullerenes are.
Yeah, we've had Cliff Hoy on the show talking about C60.
Okay, so like I said, I have a skincare company, and I've been doing this I've been an essential oil specialist for 25 years. And when I first heard about C60, and it's great, you hear Cliff Hoy talk about this and that, and lab rats, etc., etc. For me, when I went researching, is one specific area, and that is cosmic radiation, ultraviolet radiation. There are multiple studies showing that C60 protects against ultraviolet radiation. And not just protects, but may actually reverse the effects of the damage. Now, scientists don't know why this is, and I actually work closely with a scientist, a good friend of mine, who gives me a lot of the inside scoop, if you will. He's been working with C60 for many, many, many years. Scientists don't understand a concept of how something works. So they try to define, well, what's the mechanism that makes it do that one thing? And they can't define it. So therefore you get a lot of scientists will then go, well, you know, we'll make computer models and we'll try and prove something, etc. But the end result is we know. So for example, myself, I've been working with C60 now for a year. And I had a shoulder injury. I have a rotator cuff that's really, really bad. So I was rubbing C60 in black seed oil into my shoulder to deal with the injury. And I went out on a boat trip here in the Mediterranean last summer with a good friend of mine. And funnily enough, that's the other thing. The other thing is that last summer I also broke my right foot. Just a small bone in my right foot. So I was rubbing the C60 on my foot as well. Went out on the boat trip, got talking business, didn't really pay attention, came back home looking like a lobster everywhere except my right foot and my left shoulder. My face was burnt, my right shoulder was burnt, my left shoulder was completely fine, my right foot was burnt, my left foot was burnt, my right foot was completely fine. So you sit there and go, and I hadn't put any on that morning. It's not like I'd applied it like a sunscreen. I'd put it on every night before I go to bed.
Okay, we have to wrap things up, Danny. So you heard the shungite. Maybe I'll tell you, there's going to be a part.
Shungite does contain some C60.
Right.
I actually, if you guys could see me, if I was on video, my computer is surrounded by pieces of shungite.
Okay, well that's okay because we're big into it. We wear necklaces and do pendants and stuff like that. Not necklaces, pendants, and for protection because we're convinced that, and we've tested it and it works fine. Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. We had a great chat, and definitely we're going to do another part 2. For now, just tell us your where people can check up on your website and any email address or any information that you want to give out there for people so they can have a look at it.
Absolutely. My original old, and any of you who've been around for a while, you may know my original old website was a blog spot, and it was Removing the Shackles at blogspot.com. That has been retired, although all the archive is still there, going back to 2011, I think. My new site is called RTS.earth. And that is my main site where all my shows go out, all my articles get written, etc. I have a private membership site called Uneffers Unite. We're using the nice, polite words tonight. You can all figure that out, what that actually means. And that's my membership site where we have membership-only content. I have a massive library that I've built that's my members. That's my big prize for members is they have access to my thousands and thousands of ebooks and documents, etc., and movies. My website for my skincare company and C60 company is called GaiasGarden.com, but it's GAEAS. It's the Roman spelling of Gaia, not the Greek. GaiasGarden.com, and I'm on Facebook. I asked people if you're going to, it was Dani, Arnold, McKenny. I'm the only one listed, but please send me a message first before you add me, because I get a lot of strange people want to add me and give me money and marry me and stuff like that. Really not cool. So I always tell people, if you're going to send me a friend request, please send me a message first so that I know you're a legit person.
Oh, maybe that you've heard her on OYM. Okay, Dani, just stay with us there for a minute. Thanks for all your details there. No, brilliant. Really enjoyed the chat. Just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go off to a musical break, and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and peoplesinternetradio.com.
There you go, Dani, Arnold, McKenny, our guest. Brilliant information. We had a great chat on Skype, I have to say, and we just bounced around subjects and get into them and talk to them. And I said to Dani, we're going to do a part 2, maybe solutions-based, different way of thinking. That's what the new show will be, Circle of White Light. As I said, I'll be taking a sabbatical. Myself and Steve are taking a sabbatical. Steve is running his own project with his wife, Two's Company, on PIR every Thursday. Tune in for that. Listen to Steve and BA. And basically, I'm just going to be doing my own little project the same time as OYM, 7 to 9 on Sundays, and it'll be on PIR as well. And it'll be just me. That's it. And guests. We'll be getting different guests on, and about looking at solutions, looking at thinking different. So we'll see how things go. Just having a bit of a break and see what happens. 9 years, nearly 9 years we've been going with OYM, so, maybe we just need a break. Like bands, you know what bands do? They take a break, they go off and do their own little projects, so that's kind of what we're doing with OYM at the moment. Now, coming up at 9 o'clock is Barry Prince, on PIR, so if you want to tune in to that, it's peoplesinternetradio.com. And before I leave you tonight, I want to tell you who's going to be on the show next week. Next week we have a lady called Tracy Mahin. She's a channel and a medium, and she will be talking about light language. Now, Tracy is, as she's a channel, I've asked her, will you actually channel on air? And basically, she said yes, she will for next week. Actually, just Peter said there, if you asked about the music cut out at the guest, when the guest went, yes it did. Okay, that's brilliant, Peter, thanks for that. We'll check it out there. So Tracy Martin, she's got a channel medium. We've asked her to channel and she said she would, so that's brilliant. And we'll be talking about light language. We wanted to get somebody on to talk about light language and trying to find somebody, and she just happened to say, oh, I know about light language. I said, well, that's brilliant. That kills two birds with one stone anyway, so that's brilliant. So Tracy will be on next week. Now, just to let you know about Richard Cumbers, the Pain Genie Energy Machine courses at the Birmingham Buddhist Centre coming up in April and May. Listeners can look at the website 21stcenturyenergymedicine.com under the Skinner Training tab for info. And if you buy a Pain Genie, there's a discount for OYM listeners. And anyone who buys a Pain Genie will get free access to the new tab in the paid members only subscription, which will cover most types of chronic and degenerative disease. We endorse the Pain Genie because it's proven time and time again. We've used it on a regular basis. For our listeners who have never heard of the Pain Genie, go over to a website called thepaingenie.com. And you can check it out and see what it's all about. And it's something that we use, and we have treated people successfully with pain. It's something that I'm going to be using on one of the lads in the band, actually, that he's complaining that he's a issue with his elbow. So I'm going to be giving him some treatment, and I'll keep you posted on that and let you know how we get on. We'll see what happens. Now, just a reminder before we go, as I mentioned earlier on the show about, and we talked to Dani about it, just watch out. Social media is going nuts. Alright? There's people all over social media, whether they're paid trolls or shills, or whether they're just people who've lost the plot. And they'll accuse you of anything. You know, you can't now, for some reason, give your opinion on your far-right extremist or far-left extremist, or I don't know where they get all these bloody titles from, you know, giving your opinion. But what they've mentioned in the Irish news recently is about Facebook either banning people or the police turning up if you're an extremist. So I think there's people on Facebook trying to purposely bait people because of that. So you just be careful. Don't get into heated arguments. And if you're in a group that of like-minded people, then it shouldn't be an issue. But if you start getting into heated arguments in a different group, either leave the group or just stop. Because it's not worth it. I'll be watching now on OYM and stuff like that for people, and if I see anything like that at all, then straight away they're going to be removed, because zero tolerance with that straight away. Has to be sorted out, has to be dealt with. So yeah, Paddy's Day today. There you go. So I'm sure people are out. Probably, I mean, we had a great audience tonight, but I'm sure people are down the pubs having a few drinks on the Paddy's night. So enjoy your pints. You'll probably tune into the podcast tomorrow or during the week, and you have a listen to this. But that's the news. So the reason why, just in case people tuned in late and you're wondering where's Steve, Steve is on a family outing tonight. With all the family, so he sends his apologies. He can't make it tonight, but we did have a podcast of Steve's week earlier on, so when you listen to the podcast, you'll be able to listen to what Steve had to say. Thanks for Peter letting us know about the software. Obviously, if that's still doing the problem that we're having, then plan B, I'm going to have to look at that during the week and then come up with another plan and see what we can do, and see if we can change the software. As usual, if you have any information and you come across it and you think that it's of interest, send it in to us, info@oymradio.com. We're always keen. Don't send pages and pages and pages of stuff. We don't have time to read that. Small stuff for small videos, especially with what's going on energy-wise, is quite of interest. Now, apparently this solar flare, right? Now, I'm only saying this for entertainment purposes only, so don't say it's, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but they're talking about the 21st of March for this solar flare, 21st, 22nd. So let's just see what happens, okay? Let's just see. And if something happens major, well then, fair enough, we'll have to deal with it. But we've had these dates come and go, and we've had these predictions come and go, and nothing has ever happened. So I'll be just curious to see what happens. All right. So for myself, well, listen, have a great bank holiday. Bank holiday tomorrow, Monday. You have a lie on. Hopefully a lot of people have a lie on over here. In Ireland, we have the bank holiday with Paddy's Day. So for myself, Alan James, take it easy. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you have a great week. And if you hear any news on that, by all means, let me know, because I'll be very interested. For myself, take it easy. Thanks for tuning in tonight. And enjoy the chat. Actually, working everything. Normally, I'm in Steve's seat here. Well, Steve's normally here doing everything, and I'm in my seat, so I'm kind of doing everything and doing the chat as well. And a great group of people on the chat. Fantastic. It was good to see your comments on what's going on there, both on PIO and OYM. So well done. Enjoyed seeing the comments that you're making there. So take care, and have a good week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Open your mind.